Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar regarding a crucial topic that resonates across industries. The topic that we'll be diving into today is, do you have the right tool to understand the impact of your learning on business metrics? Today's panel will include Laurent Balaguet. He is the Analytics Product Line Manager for Docebo. He is a thought leader in learning analytics and the former CEO and co-founder of Formetris. Laurent has helped hundreds of companies improve learning performance through pragmatic, ambitious, and customized evaluation strategies. We will also have Heather B. Wallace joining us today. Heather is the Learning Management Systems Administrator at Christus Health. She has previously helped Christus migrate their EMR and LMS systems and was a LMS administrator at Providence Health and Services. Next, we have Rachel McClellan. She is the Senior Data Architect for Ellucian. She is an experienced data and analytics and business intelligence professional, including having worked for Campus Logic and Ellucian acquisition before Ellucian. She was the Ellucian lead on the Docebo and Learn data integration into Ellucian's data warehouse via Snowflake. We also have Sean Dinacenti, the Learning Technology Administrator at Ellucian. She focuses on enabling remote learning to increase product adoption by measuring learning impact using multiple data sources. Leading us today and guiding us through conversation will be Michael Rochelle. He is the Chief Strategy Officer and Principal Analyst at Brandon Hall Group. Michael is well known for his deep insight into learning innovation and the evolution of learning technology and data analytics. He previously held many executive leadership roles, including in HR, information technologies, sales, and business development. Co-moderating today's webinar will be Claude Werder. Claude is the Senior Vice President and a Principal Analyst for Brandon Hall Group, working in all areas of human capital management, including learning and talent management. Moving on, we would like to give a huge thank you to our webinar sponsor, Docebo. Docebo is the world's most powerful learning platform built for the business of learning. Docebo helps organizations around the world deliver scalable, personalized learning to customers, partners, and employees, driving productivity, engagement, revenue, and growth. The Docebo platform is stable and intuitive with innovative technology for content generation, automation, and analytics, along with the industry's most advanced AI capabilities. This enables businesses to create and manage content, effectively train diverse audiences, and measure the impact of their learning programs, all from a single platform. Be sure to visit them at docebo.com. Now, some information about Brandon Hall Group and some announcements and logistics. For those of you who aren't familiar with Brandon Hall Group, we are a human capital management research and advisory firm that empowers excellence in organizations around the world through our research and tools. We have 6 practice areas listed here. A quick mention that we currently have several certification programs open for enrollment, including our Certified Learning Strategist program. Visit certifications.brandonhall.com to learn more about how to earn a designation. Your participation in Brandon Hall Group's research surveys is one of the most crucial components of our insights and thought leadership. So if you have a few minutes to spare and see any topics that you can take a survey for, it is greatly appreciated. As you can see, we have 2 open surveys as of right now. First is, how are you addressing your learning pain points? And also the rewards and recognition for 2024 survey. The links will be available in your handout, and you can always visit brandonhall.com. All participants receive a piece of complimentary research once the results are analyzed. And finally, a few logistics. To ask questions, please use the questions panel in your control bar. We will leave time at the end for questions. This webinar is being recorded, and we will share a link to the recording and a PDF of the presentation via email in about roughly 24 hours. If you would like to download a copy of today's presentation instantly, the link to do so will be available in the chat shortly. The chat is also open for today, and we really hope that you will share your thoughts and experiences as we go along the webinar today. Your feedback and perspective on what we present today and on your own experiences will make the webinar more valuable for everyone. So please join in on today's discussion and share your thoughts as we go through, or just simply pop in, say hello, and let us know where you're joining from today. Okay, now let's get to the content. I'd like to pass things over to Michael Rochelle, who will get things started for us today.
Well, hi, everyone. Hi to the panel. Glad you're all here today. This is a pretty impressive lineup, so I'm really hoping to have folks in the audience take advantage of asking as many questions as you want. We're going to take them real time, so you don't have to wait till the end. No cliffhangers. We'll get you the answers right away. But it's a very important set of things we're going to be talking about today. And although we're floating here a few ideas, anything else you'd like to talk about along the subject, please let us know and we'll get that answered for you. But roughly, we're going to kind of circle around these ideas. First is the measuring the impact of learning. There are a lot of challenges in being able to do that today. Time, resources, how do I get this done? What's the right way to go about doing it? We know a lot of that has to do with being able to incorporate learning data into overall data to be able to get the insights that we're trying to derive. And then many of us have probably gone through some significant trial and error with what kind of learning tool, analytics tool we should use. And how do we know what the great attributes are for that? How do we know we're using the right one based on our particular situation within our organization? And our experts are going to talk about all of these today. And again, anything else you'd like to cover. Kind of an icebreaker. We're going to jump into a quick poll question to get things started. So let's introduce the poll. So the question is, how much time do you spend on reporting right now? And this is reporting out learning. Like, how much time are you really spending putting it together and getting it out? So how are we doing on the responses?
Pretty good. We have about 60%. I'm going to end the poll and share the results now.
Nice. On the edge of my seat. There it is. That's surprising. That's surprising. I would have thought that people would be spending a bigger part of their day. We need to drill into that as a panel. So we've got around, if I'm doing my math right, about 84% of people spend 30 minutes a day or less on reporting. So what does the panel think of that? Like, what are the takeaways? How's that hit you? It makes me want to ask a bunch of questions, but I'll let the panel jump in first.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Heather.
What I think with that is where we are currently and stepping away from is that there are a lot of people running a lot of reports. So it's kind of buckshot all over the place. So that might be what takes 15 minutes a day, is because everybody's trying to gather their own information. We're not really getting a comprehensive look at anything. So.
Laurent, you had some thoughts?
Yes, well, I would love to know more if it's because the respondents had a lot of automatism already, and so a solid automated process, or they don't, so they have narrowed down the scope of what they're doing in terms of reporting. So there could be multiple scenarios, because what usually we find that lack of time is one of the key reasons for reducing the scope of learning analytics ambitions. So thank you for providing feedback, and we'd love to know more about their situation.
We had somebody weighing in here saying, to be honest, with everything else I am doing and having been burned by poor reporting tools multiple times in the past, I typically don't bother, or I try to automate them so I can create it once and then let it go to the people who want it. So I think that's a fairly typical response, right?
Rachel, Sean, you're in the thick of this every day.
Yeah, I was going to join on to that I think it's more of a lack of time / very overwhelmed with the amount of data that they have and not really knowing where to start. Because I'm assuming if they're joining this panel, that the point is they do want to do reporting. So if they're not doing much now, it's possible they just don't know where to start, or they just are very overwhelmed, or just need some sort of process to make it more streamlined.
I think this whole question is where we were at the 30 minutes a day at least point, and that rings very true for us. With the new reporting tool that we started using, that dropped to under 15 minutes a day because we were able to automate all of that, and Rachel put together some beautiful dashboards for us, so the people that were asking for the reports were able to self-serve. So this strikes me as about right.
Yeah, it's great that people are weighing in. For the folks that did answer in the 30 minutes or less, we'd love to hear why. Let's flip the script. There was a small group, I think it was like 13%. 1 out of 10 people said 60 minutes or more. How about those folks? Like what's driving
What's
that?
causing that?
Yeah. What's the reason for that? We'll kind of let people weigh in as we go. But I think we're all kind of in agreement that we're probably not spending the right amount of time on it either way. Are we really being able to support what we want to do with the right time and resources on doing this? Would have been great too, and I'll throw this out as a follow-up, is when you're spending your time on reporting, what are you actually reporting on? What are you creating, and do you find it even meaningful? Would you like to be doing something more meaningful with the time that you're putting in? So any constraints around that, let us know, or how you're spending that time and what are you reporting out on. I think particularly of interest, we'd love to know is, what kind of data and insights are you deriving? Like, what are you saying in those reports? So let us know as we kind of go through this discussion.
Yeah, be good to see the different ways people are doing it.
And I don't think, Claude, this is too far out from what we see in our research as well.
No, not at all. And especially the comment from the gentleman that with everything else he has to do, it's just very hard to take more time than that. And so I think it's as much of a mindset thing. It's certainly related, I think, to the quality of the tools and the technology, but also just historically, learning professionals who talk to us in our interviews and in our surveys, they just don't prioritize learning measurement as much as content development and other aspects of their job, even though it's an important part of determining the impact of learning. So yeah, it definitely is characteristic of what we've been seeing for years now. And really, there hasn't been much of a change.
Right. So panelists, let's break it down. Let's get into the nitty gritty. So let's take measuring the impact of learning. Ron, I'm going to come back to you. You were kicking around some really important points, and I think it kind of dovetails with the abstract to the roundtable, which is we've got time issues. We've got resource issues. We've got process issues. We've got a lot of challenges. What have you seen? I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, worked with organizations. How does that all come together? How does that all impact everything? And why does that make it so difficult to measure the impact?
Yes, so there are many reasons that makes measurement difficult in our activity. And because of that, what we see learning professionals, they're overwhelmed to prepare the future. They're overwhelmed because there's so much to prepare to make the present learning work well, to prepare for the future learning, and measuring and looking backward. I think it's not natural for learning professionals. So this is why I think it's even harder for learning professionals than for other professionals. So if you don't have the right strategy, meaning you know why you want to do it, the right operations, how to do it, and the right tools, it's so difficult that you, as I've said, you reduce dramatically the level of ambitions because you don't have any other choices. So it's important to know why you want to do it, what stakeholders, what use cases you want to serve. And I think with all the other panelists have good stories to share about that, how they were successful and what was the ambition initially, and that led to the success.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. I'm going to throw this back out to Rachel. A couple folks were saying, hey, the reason I spend this amount of time on it is I'm not very good at it. I'd like to be able to ground it in something that is more meaningful. And then there was another point that was made too, that there's all different requirements across the organization. You're serving a lot of masters and saying what defines impact based on what part of the organization they're reporting out on. What are your thoughts around those comments?
I would say the way that we're able to do this successfully is we have a very ongoing relationship between our business intelligence side and our learning and development side, or really any department across the organization. We have this one group of people in the business intelligence side, and we have a specific person kind of dedicated to each of the different departments. And we just have this ongoing conversation to figure out, okay, what is it that you're looking for? And then to have the technical side of things to be able to say that might not come across the way you want it. So just having that ongoing conversation is probably the most important to really get beneficial reporting out of it. Anything else, Sean, that you would want to add to that?
No, I completely agree with everything that you and Laurent were saying, is that sometimes it's hard because training traditionally has been very siloed, and we look at, number of people in classes. And with this project that we were working on, Rachel and I, it was really incorporating other people's data into our training. And Laurent, you had said something that really struck me about reporting being backwards looking. And I was thinking most of our reporting is forecasting and forward looking, and that's what people get excited about. And we're like, oh yeah, that other stuff. So it's really important to combine that training data with the business data, because that's what the leadership is interested in. That's what they're putting resources to. And that gives us those forecasting answers so we can make those data-driven business decisions that leadership gets excited about. So it's been an interesting journey.
And speaking of journeys, Heather, give us some more insights about your journey. When you were first looking at this, you were probably facing all of these challenges. Like, how difficult was that?
Our reports were really, again, just controlled and siloed, and that's what we're finding there. And it's answering the questions that most people have of, compliance, who did what and when, and then who changed what and when. A lot of audit requests are happening too. And I think, again, people not knowing what to do. When we look in our list of reports, there are just hundreds of messy reports that people have created trying to find the information they're looking for. So when we look to this tool and kind of looking to Power BI, where A, the information can be provided to them, B, they don't need to be an administrator to access it. They don't need all of those things, and we can kind of, hone in on what they're looking for and keep our information clean.
Yeah, it's interesting, something that all of you touched on in different ways, but I think Sean was really going for it, was this idea that you have all of this data, all of this information. I mean, it screams scale as being a problem too. That's kind of like the elephant in the room. Like, if you were reporting on 4 people kind of going through this and you had like single metrics to do it, be pretty simple. But for, I think, a lot of us, right, it's just being able to pull in like what everyone said from the audience. This complexity and difficulty in doing it is really around scale. Like, how do I've got all this hyper-personalized learning going, I have all these hyper-personalized requirements and conditions. there's a myriad of business metrics that we're chasing. I mean, scale in and of itself is going to be a huge problem. And Lauren, I'm going to come back to you on this, is kind of introduce the next point is, so we're trying to incorporate all this learning data. Yet we're also trying to tap into all the data that's kind of swirling around inside the organization, because we know that that data is important to kind of give color and commentary and shape to the learning data, itself. And then you're trying to scale all this. You're trying to make it real time. I mean, one of the examples that we threw out at the conference is just simply trying to show how learning's impact on individual performance. Even that is hard because performance reviews are taking place once a year. How often does a manager talk to someone to get feedback on performance, yet they're learning every day? How do you incorporate all this learning data into the company's data ecosystem?
I would say there are two angles. First, it's a technical angle. The data has to be in the corporate data ecosystem. If learning wants to have a table for business decisions to be considered as a key business stakeholder, learning data must be in the company data warehouse. If not, then that means it's a periphery and it will not be part of data-driven decisions of executives. So that's technical answer is, I think, the first criteria. And second is you need to define the right strategy, because there's so much in learning data. There's so much we can calculate, but we don't want to calculate everything. So we need to be driven by what's really essential, either by stakeholders, as Sean was saying, or by use cases. We see the two approaches and they're compatible. Learning is used for different use cases. So I know the key metrics that make sense for each use case. Or we are driven by stakeholders and I have to report to some business managers, some customers, some partners, some executives. And I know for each stakeholder, what will be the top 3-4 metrics that will speak to them. So that's probably the two angles I would say that are essential so that this project will be successful.
So I'm going to come back to Rachel and Sean on this. So you were kind of touching on it, Sean. You're trying to pull all of this together, but how do you know the data is even worth working with? How do you go about stratifying it and scrubbing it and these data lakes, all this crazy terminology that people use? And then there was an interesting comment also that some people feel like the data is trapped within a particular tool. And so to even get it out into like an analytics tool, which we'll talk about later, in and of itself is a daunting task. If you were both of you and Rachel were in the middle of all this, but Sean, kick us off on that. How did you go through that process?
Yeah, so I'm the end user. I'm the very happy end user. Rachel is my technical person that built everything, and she did a phenomenal job. But really being able to take the information, and we could see it. I mean, we were doing 5-star ratings for our courses. We were doing ILT learning impacts. We were doing course report data. But being able to take that out of Docebo, I think it was like a snowflake to snowflake integration through this tool, and then put it into a dashboard that somebody else could self-serve in other departments. And I'll just give you one example that was really powerful for us. We had a customer success manager who had 2 schools in the same community college system that were struggling. And he went to one of the dashboards that Rachel built for us using that tool that pulled the data out and searched on his names, and he could see all of his clients. And he was like, that's interesting. This client here, our customer, is doing really well, and these 2 are struggling. And I noticed that the one that's doing really well took these 3 courses. The only reason I knew about it was because he called me to confirm the reports were correct and saying, could that possibly be right? Because they took these 3 courses, that school is doing well and the other 2 aren't. So they put together the training coordinators from the school that was doing well with the other 2 recommended that training, and it brought them up. So that's an example of a real powerful use of data where it's combining that customer success support data that was in a totally different system with our training data to make an impact for a customer. And that customer success manager was like, I can't believe I could just sort that data by my own name and not have to call anybody. And so it was exciting.
So Rachel, you're the technical guru, according to Sean. So tell us your story on the other side of it.
Sure. So for those that don't know, Snowflake is a cloud-based data warehouse, and that's we've only been using it just, I think, slightly prior to when I joined in 2022. But we have so much of our data within that one area, and to be able to then have the learned data accessible there, like Sean said, was invaluable to be able to connect it to all the different areas across the company. And then it also, to make the case for importance of learning and development data, it helps show how important it is that we should look more into this learning and development side, because it can be so ignored at so many companies. You know, everyone has these trainings you can take, but it's so hard to see, are they worth it? Because they do cost money, they take time out of people's days from with doing other things that they could be doing. So it's so helpful to be able to see how it has an impact across the company, not just on people's internal learning, but as well as it helps drive sales, it helps save money, it helps keep the customers happy. So being able to have it all in that one place was amazing, as well as the fact that Sean and others have been using Docebo within the actual system for so long. We were able to look at what they're seeing, compare it to what I'm seeing on the back end, and be able to recreate this because they've been doing reporting within Docebo for so long. So that was super helpful for me, so that I didn't have to start from square one to build these reports. They were all already somewhat built, but then we could have so much more flexibility to continue building upon them.
You know, Heather, I'm going to pitch this over to you. I'm going to kind of dovetail this conversation to a comment that came in. Is a member of the audience said that if your data source is inside your LMS, that's not a good starting place. How do you feel about that?
I see that. That's what kind of the struggle we were seeing in the beginning, is the canned reports are just, you know, they're rigid, they're not dynamic, and they're canned, you know, you can't really filter the data out. So being able to extract it, you know, we use Power BI to do that, where you can change the operational data, you know, instead of having it all aggregated. So I agree with that. That's part of the reasons we were leaving some other LMSs, was the shortcomings of that reporting specifically.
Yeah, I think that's what people are getting in the audience. I'm going to come back to you on this, or as a Docebo representative. Is it awful to have your LMS be the starting place for where you pull learning data?
I think it depends on the needs. If you need to monitor, analyze the learning performance in itself, the logical place to do that it would be the LMS. So we have already some reporting capabilities. We are going to develop much more inside Docebo, but that's when it's only about learning data. We need to be reasonable when we have to mix learning data and business data. It has to be the learning data that comes to the business world and not the opposite. This is where, yes, to analyze the business impact of learning, the LMS is probably not the right tool. It has to be the corporate data ecosystem, and then the last mile, the last dashboard has to be done on Power BI, Domo, but the BI platform of the company. So this is, I would really split the world in two parts. Monitoring, analyzing learning performance can be on the LMS, and we're working a lot on this. Proving the business impact of learning should not be on the LMS, should be somewhere else.
Let me ask the entire panel on this. There's a lot of folks that we see from the research, and Claude, I'd ask you to weigh in too, and what you've seen is just the idea of organizing all the data and deciding that it's good quality data. You know, people understand it's been scrubbed, getting that all figured out, because people know that whatever tool you use down the road, if it starts making decisions off of data that people don't feel comfortable with, no one's going to be comfortable with what the insights are. A lot of folks are starting right there. It's like the whole data collection and scrubbing it and getting it right in the whole thing. In your journeys in your organizations, how'd you go about getting that even right before you even started trying to figure out what you could report or analyze?
I'll go first. For us at Ellucian, we kind of started with the Salesforce data. So we had a lot of information in Salesforce, and we were pulling the data out of Docebo to combine it with the Salesforce data outside, and it was pretty cumbersome. So having that direct pull from the Docebo and the Snowflake and it combined, that really gave us a lot of confidence. And then being able to, in all of our reports, Rachel did this wonderful thing for us where she put in certain columns that came from Salesforce and certain columns that came from Docebo, so that we could look at those two columns. And if we saw null in either one, that was our cue to go dig into and investigate that before we went live, to make sure that it was talking to each other. It was making a one-to-one relationship. So that was one of the key things for us, was having that extra column in there so that we can say for sure, yep, this is matching up with that and it's pulling through.
Yeah, that's definitely the importance of having it all in that one data warehouse, because so many different people are in charge of different systems that we use, that it's so easy to have them be mismatched. And then at that point, what's the source of truth? So it's super helpful then to have them all in that one space, so that we can say we catch so many different human errors or just system errors or whatever it is, because of having it all in that one single place, as well as within that Tableau dashboard, because specifically we mostly use Tableau for all our visualizations and dashboards. And you don't have to have a technical background to understand our Tableau dashboard, which is huge. I can basically present it to the business side so that they can tell me things that I might not notice, since I don't have the business experience, and then vice versa, so that we're constantly, once again, in that constant communication to be able to get the data as clean as possible.
I'm going to riff on that, Rich, because you actually hit on something I wanted to get at. I'm going to take this over to Laurent and Heather, is this idea of building it in the first place. How hard is that to do? Like, we're talking about like building it, and it's a good idea and it comes together, and that's the way you need to start. But I think a lot of folks out there are saying, I'm a learning and development professional, I'm not an IT person, I might not even have IT or technical support. Is this accomplishable inside the learning and development organization to build these data structures, to get this all going? And is it super time consuming? Is it kind of time consuming? So maybe Heather, from what you did within your organization, and Laurent, you can weigh into, like, talk to learning and development professionals through the idea of how hard this is to do to get the data right.
I think you said exactly that. I'm not an IT expert. I'm learning and development. But we do have a dedicated IT reporting team here. That's been huge in our success, and just working with people that know SQL, and just kind of getting those like stakeholders to support it and stand it up. I think that's our key to successful implementation right now. Just it takes time to build all of those things, and leaning on them has been a huge help.
Yeah, I think to build off on that, I think that's kind of the elephant in the room. Is it isn't necessarily easy, and people don't always have the skills, but that's where that collaboration and the willingness to work with other people, and also look at staffing sometimes a little bit differently. It's always surprising to me that even in fairly large companies, 40%, I think it was like 42% in our latest study, said they didn't have anybody dedicated to data, whether it's a data scientist or just somebody who's taken on the responsibility and gotten some education around it. So the ability to really prioritize this as front and center and something that needs to change, and also just collaborating with others is really important.
Laurent, when you work with organizations, past and present, how do you get this going inside an organization? So you're approaching them for the first time. They got to get all the data organized. Share with the audience, like, what's that approach that you take? Who's involved on their end? How do you make this all happen? What are the steps to get the data ready for even being able to do any type of analytics?
Yeah. So as I've said, so first defining the strategy. So why we do that, what we want to deliver to what stakeholders for what use case, as I've said, that would be step number one, and then how to do it. And here it will depend on the use case, but clearly defining the metrics. And we do a lot already. So with Learn Data, the solution that both Heather, Sean, and Rachel are using, we provide the raw data, but also analytics layers, so that you have already predefined metrics, predefined KPIs that you can use, and we will dramatically increase the layer of analytics in this product, so that to make the implementation work easier for our customers, because we know that all of them are struggling to have enough time from the BI teams. In a way, all the functions are struggling for the same resources internally. So the easier it is for the implementation of our customers, the better it is. So that's really for the key driver of a roadmap for this specific solution is to make the implementation easier on the customer side, so that it will take as little time as possible and as little technical resources as possible. We will always need people like Rachel. That will always be, because they are the people being able to build it. But we can make their life easier and the project simpler.
So I'm going to throw a couple ideas out to the audience, keep us all engaged and answering the questions that are out there. If you can share, we'll give you a minute or so. If you can share like what your challenges have been, what have you gone through in terms of getting all of your data organized, collected, scrubbed, stratified, building that confidence level within the organization to get ready to be able to report out and have advanced analytics or better reporting. If you could just take a minute or two and just share your stories. Love to be able to have the panel weigh in on it, but it would be great for learning from all the organizations that have joined us. Like, what's been your journey in getting to this point? We'll just give everyone a minute or so to kind of weigh in if they can.
While we're waiting, just to touch on what Laurent was saying about how obviously it is helpful to have technical people on your side, but in terms of specifically Docebo, they do make it. I am not a L&D professional. I also, before working on this project, I had never touched anything having to do with Docebo. So the fact that they were able to give a full breakdown of every single table that's within their database and all the different data types that are in there, what they actually are showing you. I still had to do a lot of learning myself, but it was so helpful with all the different resources that were provided. So in retrospect, yes, having technical experience is helpful, but having all of those resources can make it much simpler for at least people to be able to provide background of why it might be important to get some technical resources on this side, because they're able to provide all of the different information about the data itself and how it's set up and all of that. So you don't necessarily have to have that technical experience to be able to provide why it's important to spend your resources on these types of things.
It's interesting. There was a comment from the group that I think we should try to address as a group. Is they said that they're in a large organization and not everyone plays well with others when it comes to sharing data. How much of that is a real obstacle, with literally parts of the organization not sharing data, not making it easy to share data. How much of that is a challenge, and did you encounter that with your journeys?
At Ellucian, because we have that specific dedicated department of business intelligence, I think it's extremely helpful that we do have this team that essentially, I mean, different people, of course, have different levels of access to everything, but because we have this centralized place and we have this dedicated team, that helps limit the issues that come along with people being very siloed with what they want to allow. Because I have been at companies where that is the case, and that does make it a lot more of an issue. But it in regards to that, I would say that you should advocate for the reasonings behind why it will be helpful to join together versus everyone doing their own separate thing, because working together is always going to provide more of a benefit than everyone doing their own thing.
Heather, did you find that as a challenge in your organization?
Very much, and that's what we're working on, and having the buy-in from the top down has been essential. Where Christus is in their 25th year, celebrating our Jubilee this year, and we are working towards a centralized kind of concept, and that's why we started with Docebo in the first place. Is when we started bringing in all of these different groups, it was like, they use this LMS, they use this one, we do this, this is how we report and document. Well, we do it on paper, and we're kind of bringing that all in of, you know, to one central location. And like Rachel said, with having these dedicated teams to support, you know, I can understand the language, but I might not speak it, to be able to communicate what we need, and sharing that, you know, it's for the greater good to get those people to kind of release their grip on some of their protected information and make them feel safe with these kind of things, and showing them the value add of, you know, that they're still going to need that, you know, we still need them, they're still needed and wanted, but this will greatly improve their tasks during the day.
We hear a lot of stories about the lack of sharing and in our interviews, and actually an award-winning organization this year told the story of breaking out of their problems with analyzing learning data by creating consortium across the enterprise and pulling people in. And it took a while, right? It took a while to knock down some of those barriers. It included having virtual conversations, meeting people for coffee at the office, building relationships over time. But they were eventually be able to, you know, pull people together into a very collaborative group that really transformed how the organization built learning analytics.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think before we jump into the last part, you know, what are the attributes of this landing, the analytics tool itself? Let's launch the poll and just get a pulse check on how people feel about their analytics tool. Let's get that up and see what we're working with here. So if everyone take a time and just basically yes, no, whatever tool you're using doesn't meet your needs. I'd like to know that, so that we can kind of talk through why you said yes or no, and dovetail that with the last part of our discussion, which is what are the great attributes for an analytics tool?
How are we doing on results? Yeah. What are we doing?
I think we need Jeopardy music.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh.
Okay, but not by much. It's pretty much a coin toss, a little bit more towards yes, but I would call this more of a coin toss between yes and no. Clearly, for folks that, you know, answered the poll, we'd love to know why you said yes or why you said no. If you can kind of let us know what you're thinking. But I'm going to turn it back to our panel and say, does it surprise you that it's basically a little better than a coin flip of whether or not they like their analytics tool? I'll start with you, Laurent. You've seen a lot. You're in the business of getting people to work with new tools. Do you think that kind of lines up with what you see?
Yeah, well, I think, we are typically we are getting better and better. So I think there is a progress in learning analytics tools. As far as the attributes are concerned, I would say it depends on what you want to achieve, as I was saying. So maybe you may not need only one tool. So two tools may be useful, one inside the LMS, one outside the LMS. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me. That makes me happy to see that as an industry and also as one of the leaders of this industry, we are progressing to provide much better analytics tools.
Heather, Rachel, Sean, want to jump in on, does that surprise you?
I would say, in terms of people saying yes, it's possible also though that people don't know what they're missing until they see what they were missing out on. So yes, they're happy with the little bit that they do have, but that there's so many other doors that have yet to be open and could have so much more. And so tools like Docebo and being able to bring it into your own warehouse opens up all these doors that you didn't even know were possible. So I think people, yes, can be happy with what they have currently, but they just might not know what else is out there.
It's an interesting perspective. Heather, if you had to guess why a lot of people say no, what do you think the reason is why they're not happy with the current analytics tool?
I think what we were experiencing is with the canned reports, it's like you can get most of the information you need, maybe not all of it. And it just was really reporting on, completions. We're getting, this is what happened, but we're not seeing patterns of behavior, patterns of things like that. When we look at those reports, there's really no way to analyze the reports that we're being given. That's what we're looking to change with the more dynamic data.
Right. Sean, you always represent yourself as the end user. Do you think that that's a good reason for saying no? You're just not happy with having to use the tool itself, never mind setting it up.
I can kind of see it in both ways. So I'm definitely L&D, been at L&D at Ellucian for 19 years. I'm currently the LMS administrator, and the built-in reports are fabulous, and they have some dashboards that are fabulous, and they have the learning impact surveys, absolutely fabulous. So I could see myself saying, yes, this is great, this is wonderful, hitting yes. But there was also other data, specifically the e-commerce data and the subscriptions and some business data that we couldn't access. So I could see myself saying no if I was looking for that other data. And I was spending a half an hour of my day every single day exporting every extract out of the Docebo to import it into this other tool so that Rachel can combine it with other stuff. So on that, I would say no. But then when we put in the Learn Data tool, that freed up, 30 minutes of a day, which comes up, I think, took like 2 weeks a year that I can work on other products. So now I'm like really happy. And to Rachel's point, it's like, well, I might not have known that existed, that we had that capability because I'm not a BI professional like she is. And as you can tell, because both of us are both here today, Ellucian does work really well across the aisle with other teams and things like that. So I think we're very lucky in that respect that we have the right tools and the right people. And the only negative, I think, is really on Rachel's end of once our leadership saw what this tool was doing and the data it could pull out, I think she has a year-long backlog of reports to create.
No, it's got that. You set up the opportunity to be better, then you have to live up to being better, which in and of itself can create more work. I want to kind of go round robin with the four of you. All of you just have gone through change. Obviously, you're working with Docebo. Can you share with the audience like the 2-minute version of what were your top requirements for a tool? Like how did you know what great looks like? And I think a lot of people wonder because not everyone can rattle off like the ultimate requirements for a tool. What were like the 3 or 4 top things you said I can't live without that made your choice? You know, if you can just kind of jump in on that, I think the audience would really like to know what drove your choice. What were those gotta have it requirements?
I can go. I think that was, part of it was just having flexible configurable data. We need the technology to have more interactive, dynamic e-learning options and things like that. We were having a lot of things that were really, we couldn't bring third-party vendors in easily and share content like that. That was one of them. Reporting was just huge. There's a lot of, we were experiencing things as soon as a user would click on it, it would mark it as complete, whether they'd looked at it or not. Those kind of things. So a lot of just modernization of the way we deploy and deliver our education, and then how we get it back to the managers and leaderships of the completion and who's doing it, how are they doing it, when are they doing it. We are just now, we are still in the infant stage of deploying all of this. We've probably still got another year of waves to go as we bring other programs in, not just into our LMS. Like I said, we are bringing everybody into one system.
Right.
So,
right.
But being able to show them those things, they've been able to let go of those tools they've been clinging to come to this. So it's been nice. Because I think that's a lot of people are taking all of the information. I don't know what they're always doing with it. Are they taking it and they're putting it in these complicated Excel sheets? And I had one lady, she finally told me she was running 15 separate reports of the same information to give it to individual people. And I was like, oh, why are you doing that? So it's being able to step away from those kind of things and show them, because they couldn't see how to do it differently in the other tools. So,
Rachel, what were the requirements that drove your organization in picking a great analytics tool?
I would say Sean would be the better one to answer in terms of the actual choosing of the tool, but I know on the technical side of what was helpful for this tool was that you could easily connect all the different data from the LMS tool, because a lot of things will give you this table and this table and this table, and you have no idea what to do with them in terms of finding the overall connection. So I think that was important in terms of the technical side. But Sean might be able to actually say what part of the LMS was the most important.
Yeah, for us, we're a more mature customer. I think we've been with Docebo for about 5 years. We knew what we were doing with the data. We knew that we needed to get reports over to IT because they built hands-on virtual labs for our classes, and they only wanted to build, if we had 6 people in class, they only wanted to build 6 labs and then turn them off if that class wasn't going to be run again for 6 months or something. So we had cost savings there. We had partner readiness. We needed to make sure that our partners, before we put them in front of a customer, had gone through the training and stuff like that. So we had a lot of specific business requirements. And to be honest, I almost passed on the Docebo Connect piece because I was like, well, I'm not a techie person. I don't know. And at the time, another guy in the BI team, Mike, was our person that I talked to all the time. And so I kind of threw it over to him and said, hey, Mike, I don't really know what this is. What do you think? And he got so excited about it. He's like, oh my gosh, you have to get this. This would make my job as the report guy so much easier. You have to do this. And then some positions changed. And then when Rachel came in, it had already been, a signed done deal. And so she kind of picked up from there. But really, I just kind of relied on Mike telling me it would make his life so much easier to have this tool. So we were like, okay.
I bet you if we put that out to the audience, they would all say, that's my #1 requirement, make my life easier. So Absolutely. Laurent, you look at it from the provider standpoint. If you were giving based on your experience and expertise, what would you say are the top 3 requirements that make up a great tool?
Okay, so I will either 1 or 5, but so 1 is to make our customers happy and and their life easy. So that's as all of them have said. The attributes for us there are, I would say, 5 pillars: reliability, security, flexibility, openness, and simplicity. So that basically customers will be able to do that, to build their analytics strategy in a safe way, in a secure way, providing easily the right dashboards to the right person, and making dashboards easy to use for non-experts. Because learning dashboards will end up in some managers' desks that are neither learning experts nor analytics experts, but they will have to make the business decisions. So this is how we see, the good learning analytics tool must enable our customers to achieve that.
One question for all of you that's been asked and threaded a few times, and I think it's a good place for us to wrap up, is for many organizations, making an investment in the analytics tool is like net new. And everyone's asking, like, what's the ROI around all of it? How did you prove out to your respective organizations that the investment was worth it? That it was that time, the energy, dollars that you put in, there's a solid ROI, which kind of brings us back to, how do we do a better job of linking learning and performance? What's been the before and after?
I think that the ease to access the data was the big selling point on that. What they were asking, our customers are inside Christus were asking us for. This is what got them what they wanted. And we're just now seeing that, but being able to help learning happen faster, I suppose, is the easiest way to say it. We're being in a healthcare, time is of the essence to get our nurses and doctors and caregivers out serving patients as fast as possible with comprehensive learning. And so this helps, check compliance, all the boxes are checked, get them back on the road. I think that's been our biggest achievement and goal that we're already seeing in the early stages.
Sean and Rachel, you want to close it out as far as what you've seen as the before and after?
So for us, it was really looking at all the data that was in Docebo and being able to say, if I see it, I want it. So did not be able to say no. If you want a report, I can say yes, because we know we can pull it out and Rachel can do it for us. And then combining that with our Salesforce data so that when it was time for renewals and stuff like that, it was already combined on a dashboard that Rachel created for us, so that they're looking at, what's their usage, what's their engagement with our product and stuff like that. So the sales teams have been super excited to see that data in a way that makes sense to them, because it has all that Salesforce data that they're used to seeing with the training data piece added in. So for them, it was a win-win, because they got to see their data they're used to, with the plus of what we were able to pull out that we couldn't before.
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of how basically you couldn't say no to this being a helpful tool is that it hosts our internal LMS data, external, as well as the partner data, which is essentially everything we do across the company. So it's very hard to say that this wouldn't provide value, because we're able to figure out how it helps our internal members learn within the company, but as well as teach our partners as all they need to know to go out in the world. And then it also then provides value to our customers. So when those three things are everything that we do, it's kind of hard to say no to that.
All right, I'm going to give you the final word before we sign off.
Oh, well, no, I will leave it to what Heather, Sean, and Rachel have said. I cannot say more, so I'm happy to see that it worked and that a solid analytic strategy helped to defend the value of learning, and that's really what we want to achieve.
Well, thanks everyone. There you have it. If you have any follow-ups, please reach out to the Docebo team. I'm Michael Rochelle. I want to thank Claude and Shay as well from our team and helping us. I want to thank Sean, Rachel, Laurent, and Heather for joining as well. I think this was a great journey, great discussion, story. I think we accomplished a lot, and we look forward to having another conversation and maybe checking in with you as you go through your journeys to see how everything's going. Again, this is the Brand Hall Group and our panelists signing off, and have a good rest of your day. Thanks for joining.
Bye,
Thank you.